Rafael Nadal gifted Alex Eala something worth far more than any supercar on Earth, and the reason behind it will completely redefine everything you thought you understood about mentorship, sacrifice, and destiny. A 13-year-old girl flew alone from the Philippines to a foreign island carrying nothing but a racket, a dream, and a terror she refused to show. And one of the greatest athletes humanity has ever produced decided she was worth betting everything on. By the time the world finally noticed Alex Eala, by the time she stood across the net from Iga Swiatek and dismantled her in front of a stunned Miami crowd, the real question wasn't how she got there. The real question was who believed in her before anyone else dared to. That answer leads straight back to one man, one academy, one decision, one extraordinary act of investment that changed the arc of women's tennis forever. Stay right here, because by the end of this, you'll understand that what Nadal handed Alex Eala was worth infinitely more than horsepower and chrome.
Too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have. I think there are much worse problems to have, so I think every tournament wants record-breaking attendance and ticket sales, and that's what I've been hearing actually this year and the last couple of years for most of the slams and tournaments, so I mean it's a good sign. I mean, obviously we want more attention, more people coming and wanting to watch the tennis live and follow it and live stream, etc.
Quezon City, Philippines. 2018. A 13-year-old stands at an international departure gate, her brother Michael beside her, luggage tagged for Mallorca, Spain. She is not traveling for vacation. She is traveling toward a life she cannot yet fully imagine, toward courts that don't yet know her name, toward a legend who hasn't yet spoken directly to her. Alexandra Eala was born into a family that understood tennis at a different level than most Filipino households. Tennis culture in the Philippines, while passionate, had never produced a figure capable of cracking the elite global circuit. The infrastructure wasn't there. The pathways were scarce. The belief, institutionally, was thin. So when a connection emerged that opened the doors of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, Mallorca, the Eala family faced a decision no parent takes lightly. Do we send our 13-year-old daughter across the world to chase something extraordinary? The answer required courage that deserves its own documentary. It came as a shock because I was young, Eala would later reveal. I was 13 when we made that decision, and it was a big decision for us. I think one of the deal breakers for my parents was that they sent my brother along with me, so I still had family close. That detail alone, the brother accompanying her so she wouldn't dissolve into loneliness, speaks volumes about what this journey demanded. This wasn't a wealthy family casually purchasing elite training. This was a family dismantling its own structure to give one child a fighting chance at something historic. She arrived at the Rafa Nadal Academy as an unknown, a wild card from Southeast Asia in a sport dominated by Europeans and Americans. The courts at Manacor were built for excellence, demanding, uncompromising, molded in the image of the man whose name graced every wall. Rafa himself wasn't handing out favors. The academy ran on discipline, repetition, and a refusal to accept anything less than total commitment. And yet, something about Eala fit. She was left-handed, just like Nadal. She carried that same quiet ferocity, a stillness on the surface masking an engine burning at full heat underneath. Within 2 years of arriving, she captured the Junior Australian Open doubles title in 2020. The following year, the Junior French Open doubles. In 2021, she claimed her very first ITF singles title on the courts of the Rafa Nadal Academy itself, as if the ground beneath her feet already knew what she was capable of. Then came 2022, the US Open, junior singles, history. Alex Eala became the first Filipino player ever to win a Grand Slam junior singles title. An entire nation erupted. Flags were raised, headlines exploded across Manila. And at the Rafa Nadal Academy, the coaches who had watched her grind through 7 years of grueling development simply nodded. They had seen this coming long before anyone outside those walls understood what was being built. But here's what nobody was asking yet. What exactly did Nadal give this girl that no amount of money could replicate? The answer unfolds across the next chapter, and it's more powerful than you're expecting. Let's be precise about something, because precision matters when you're telling a story this extraordinary. The Rafa Nadal Academy didn't just offer Eala court time and a coaching staff. It offered her an entire philosophy of competition. Rafa Nadal, 22 Grand Slam titles, 209 weeks ranked world number 1, a man who turned left-handed aggression into an art form, built that academy on a singular belief that greatness is not inherited. It is constructed deliberately, painfully, over thousands of hours that nobody outside those walls ever witnesses. Eala absorbed every molecule of that philosophy. She trained there for 7 years. 7 years! That number is not incidental. It represents roughly half of her entire life at the point she graduated in 2023. The academy became, in her own words, her second home. She told journalists, "I've been there for about 7 years. It's my second home, and I have so many good relationships with the people there. They've helped me in my development an astronomical amount." Astronomical. Her word, not a journalist's embellishment. When you strip away every piece of tennis equipment, every surface, every coaching salary, what Nadal fundamentally handed Alexandra Eala was belief architecture, a structured environment where an unlikely champion from an unlikely country could build the mental and physical framework required to compete with the best athletes on earth. He also handed her something deeply personal, his own example. "He is so grounded," Eala said about Nadal, speaking with the kind of reverence that doesn't come from press obligations, but from genuine proximity to someone exceptional. "He has achieved more than anything I could dream of, and the fact that he is still so nice to everyone around him is very admirable." Read that again. She didn't say he was talented. She didn't marvel at his trophies. She marveled at his character, at the way astronomical achievement hadn't corroded his humanity. That lesson, absorbed across 7 formative years, shaped not just how Eala plays tennis, but how she carries herself through the pressure, the media, the expectations now weighing on her as the undisputed face of Filipino tennis. Nadal tracked her progress with the attention of someone who had genuine stakes in her trajectory. When she defeated Jelena Ostapenko, a Grand Slam champion, Nadal posted immediately, "Congratulations, Alex! What a great victory for you and for the Philippines." When she dismantled Madison Keys, ranked number 5 in the world, Nadal's Instagram story lit up with applause emojis directed at her. Stop and think about what that means. A retired 22 Grand Slam champion living his post-tennis life, watching your matches closely enough to respond within hours. Not because he was obligated, because he cared about what he helped build. That is the supercar. That is the gift. And what happened next, the moment Eala stepped onto the biggest stages of professional tennis and delivered results nobody on the outside predicted, is where this story catches fire. March 2025, the Miami Open. Ranked 140 in the world, invited via wildcard, no seeding, no guarantees, no reason, statistically, logically, historically, to expect anything remarkable. What followed was one of the most shocking runs in recent WTA history. Round 1, Katie Volinets, defeated. Round 2, Jelena Ostapenko, former Roland Garros champion, demolished 7-6, 7-5. Round 3, Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion, ranked number 5 in the planet, dismantled 6-4, 6-2. 3 Grand Slam champions' trophies sat collectively in their opponents' cabinets. None of it slowed her down. Then came the quarterfinal. Iga Swiatek, world number 2, former world number 1, one of the most mentally formidable competitors women's tennis has produced in a generation. The match that the entire tennis world had circled, not because anyone truly believed Eala would win it, but because watching Eala compete had become appointment television. She won. Alexandra Eala beat Iga Swiatek on one of the sport's grandest stages, becoming the first Filipino player to accomplish something at the WTA level that had genuinely never been done before. An entire nation stopped. Group chats across the Philippines exploded. Fans at the venue carried signs, screamed themselves hoarse, created an atmosphere that a player from Southeast Asia had never commanded at a WTA 1000 event. And Nadal, retired, watching from Spain, a man who had set down his racket just 4 months earlier, saw everything unfold. Rafa messaged me, Eala revealed during an interview. It was the first time he ever messaged me personally, so that was a shock to see. Funny story, I only saw it a couple of days later. It was exciting to see his notification. She saw Nadal's personal message days late because she was too busy making history to check her phone. That moment, that specific detail, encapsulates everything. The mentor reaching out privately, not for cameras, not for headlines, just a legend sending quiet recognition to someone he watched grow from a 13-year-old arriving on a foreign island into a force capable of ending Swiatek's Miami campaign. Could any supercar ever carry that kind of weight? Not a chance. Here is where this story reaches a moment so cinematic, it almost feels scripted, but every word of this is documented, verified, and real. November 19th, 2024. Rafael Nadal played his final match at the Davis Cup Finals in Malaga. 22 Grand Slams, hundreds of millions of fans. An era ended. Exactly 1 year later, to the precise calendar date, Nadal picked up a tennis racket for the first time since that farewell, and the person standing across the net from him, the person he chose for this deeply symbolic return, was Alexandra Eala. At his academy in Mallorca, on the courts where she spent 7 years becoming who she is. Him, returning to the game, even briefly, with her. 1 year later, it felt great to be back on a tennis court, Nadal posted to his millions of social media followers. It was great to practice with you, Eala. Next time, I will be stronger. Eala's response, posted publicly, back like you never left. Then, weeks later, she told journalists what that session actually felt like up close. It was my first time ever hitting with him, and I was so nervous, and it was definitely physically demanding for me. Nervous. She, a player who had just defeated Swiatek, Keys, and Ostapenko within the same tournament, was nervous facing Nadal across a net in practice. Because some relationships carry a gravity that rankings and results cannot diminish. She was in that moment still the 13-year-old who had arrived at his academy 7 years earlier, carrying a racket and a dream she wasn't sure anyone else believed in. He believed in it. He built the environment that let it grow. And on the anniversary of his own ending, he chose her as the symbol of his beginning, whatever that beginning means for whatever comes next. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time a retired champion chose a young player from a historically overlooked tennis nation as the person worth returning to a court for? That question answers itself. By the start of 2026, Alexandra Eala stood at a career-high world ranking of number 45. She had arrived at the Abu Dhabi Open ranked higher than she had ever been, a player who just 2 years prior had entered that very same tournament ranked 187 via wildcard. The trajectory is almost violent in its sharpness. She didn't just improve. She transformed, and the transformation is inseparable from what the Rafa Nadal Academy deposited into her across those 7 years. The tactical intelligence, the physical conditioning, the mental toughness that allows a 20-year-old to walk onto a WTA 1000 court ranked 140, face a Grand Slam champion in round 2, and feel like she belongs there. Because she does belong there. She was built for it. Coaches at the academy didn't just drill her ground strokes, they exposed her to a culture of winning that operates at the cellular level. Nadal's philosophy, rooted in relentlessness, in treating every single practice session as if the championship depends on it, permeated every wall of that facility. Eala didn't absorb it passively, she lived inside it for 7 consecutive years of her adolescence and early adulthood. Her results at the 2025 Miami Open didn't come from nowhere. They came from 2018 arriving in Mallorca. They came from 2020's Junior Australian Open doubles, from 2021's ITF title on those very courts, from 2022's Junior US Open crown, from thousands of mornings when nobody outside that academy compound was watching, when the only reward for another grueling training session was the session itself. The supercar in this story isn't a physical object sitting in a garage somewhere. It's Alexandra Eala, fully engineered, precision-built, capable of speeds the tennis world is only beginning to measure. And Nadal didn't hand her keys. He handed her the blueprint, the mechanics, the years, the belief, and the personal attention of a champion who understood exactly what it took to build something capable of lasting. Now think about what comes next, because we are, by every measurable indicator, watching the very early chapters of something extraordinary. Stand back from all of it. The Miami run, the Swiatek upset, the private message, the symbolic practice session on the anniversary of his retirement, the crowds of Filipino fans blocking traffic around Court 6 in Melbourne, carrying signs, chanting her name. What is actually happening here? Alexandra Eala is not simply a tennis player having a breakthrough season. She is a proof of concept for something the sport desperately needed to demonstrate, that elite women's tennis can be built, genuinely built, outside the traditional European and American pipelines, that a girl from the Philippines with the right environment and the right mentorship can walk onto the same courts as Swiatek and belong there completely. Nadal understood this before the statistics proved it. He wasn't just running an academy for revenue. He was, consciously or otherwise, building a vehicle for expansion, a way of extending the reach of tennis into territories the sport had historically ignored. Eala's emergence is the most dramatic validation that investment has yet produced. And the relationship between them, the legend and the protege, carries an emotional weight that transcends the transactional. He tracked her through junior titles nobody in mainstream media covered. He celebrated her earliest professional victories on social media with a pride that read as genuinely paternal. He sent her a private message during the most important week of her career. He chose her, above everyone else, for the first practice session he took in the year following his retirement. That is not a business arrangement. That is not a marketing strategy. That is what it looks like when someone decides years before the evidence arrives that a person is worth everything they have to offer. So here's the question worth sitting with, the one worth debating in the comments below, the one that this entire story ultimately asks without providing a clean answer. If Rafa Nadal had never opened that academy, If he had simply retired into private life and never built the environment that gave a 13-year-old from the Philippines a place to become herself, would Alexandra Eala exist as we know her today? And the deeper version, how many Alex Ealas are still out there in countries the tennis world hasn't looked at yet, waiting for someone to build them something worth arriving for? That, more than any trophy or ranking or viral moment, is Rafa Nadal's actual legacy. And it's only accelerating. Rafa Nadal didn't hand Alexandra Eala a supercar. He handed her 7 years of his life's work, the philosophy that made him the greatest clay court competitor in history, a surrogate home on a foreign island, and the quiet, consistent belief of a champion who recognized something extraordinary long before the world caught up. Alex Eala is ranked 45 in the world. She has beaten Swiatek, she has beaten Keys, she has an entire nation stopping traffic to watch her play on Court 6 in Melbourne, and she still gets nervous standing across a net from the man who believed in her first. That is the real story. That is the real gift. And the best chapter? It hasn't been written yet. If this story moved you, if you've been following Eala's rise, or if you believe there are more players like her waiting for their own Rafa Nadal, drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Subscribe, because we cover the stories women's tennis deserves, told with the depth and emotion they actually demand. Hit that bell. You don't want to miss what comes next.